Everyone thinks that once you become a star, you've made it. Fame, fortune, red carpets. But in Hollywood, success always comes with strings attached. For decades, a hidden network of influence has quietly controlled who gets to shine and who gets shut out. Some actors lost everything for their beliefs. Others simply refused to look the other way. They were once everywhere, then suddenly gone. From whispered smear campaigns to careers cut off in silence, we're uncovering the stories of the stars Hollywood tried to erase, and the shocking reasons why they were blacklisted from the industry. Sandra Locke. After Clint Eastwood ended things with Sandra Locke in 1989, her career practically came to a standstill. She was quietly shut out by Hollywood's biggest studios, a blacklist that would stretch on for nearly a decade. Before all that chaos, Sandra had been thriving. She'd earned an Oscar nomination early on, starred alongside Eastwood in 6 of his films, and was carving out a promising path as a director. But when their relationship fell apart, things took a brutal turn. One day, she came home to find the locks on their shared house changed and all her belongings dumped into storage. She wasn't about to let that slide. In response, Locke filed a palimony suit against Eastwood, determined to fight back. By 1990, the two reached a settlement. Eastwood arranged for her to have a development deal at Warner Brothers in exchange for dropping the case. But that supposed truce didn't last. 5 years later, Locke was back in court, claiming Eastwood had secretly been paying Warner Brothers to keep her from working. Her suspicions weren't unfounded. Every one of the 30 projects she pitched was rejected, and the studio never offered her anything else. When it became clear the jury was leaning in her favor, Eastwood quietly settled again, this time for an undisclosed amount. Her career never fully bounced back, but the case sent a powerful message through Hollywood. Even the most influential figures couldn't use their power to silence or sabotage someone without facing consequences. Mo'Nique. After winning the Oscar for Best Supporting Actress for her unforgettable performance in Precious, Mo'Nique should have been riding high, but according to her, that victory came with a heavy price. She claims that after taking home that golden statue, Hollywood completely turned its back on her. In an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, Mo'Nique revealed that she received a call from director Lee Daniels months after her win. During that conversation, he allegedly told her she had been blackballed. When she asked why, she says Daniels told her it was because she didn't play the game. But when she pressed him to explain what that meant, she got silence on the other end of the line. It was a shocking revelation, and one with no real answers. Even though she's been offered roles since her Oscar win, Mo'Nique says none of them ever materialized. And interestingly, Lee Daniels later confirmed that there was truth to her claims. He praised her as an undeniable creative force, but explained that her behavior during the Precious Awards campaign didn't always align with the studio's expectations. According to him, that tension damaged her relationship with key figures in the industry. Daniels insisted that he still considers her a friend and would love to collaborate again. But he also admitted that when it came to casting recent projects, the decision-makers chose to go in another direction. So it seems her talent was never in question. What really cost her was how she handled herself during the whirlwind that followed Precious. Mira Sorvino. Mira Sorvino's career took a devastating hit, and the reason was as disturbing as it was unfair. Harvey Weinstein. She had the courage to reject his sexual advances, and that decision ended up costing her dearly. In an interview with Ronan Farrow, Mira opened up about what really happened. She explained that she turned Weinstein down more than once, and even went to people inside Miramax to report his behavior. But soon after, her once-rising career began to stall. She admitted that while there could have been other reasons, she strongly believed that her rejection of Weinstein played a major role in the sudden slowdown. That sense of being professionally frozen, of watching doors quietly close, was something she never forgot. Then came a moment that confirmed her worst fears. In 2017, Peter Jackson, the director behind The Lord of the Rings, revealed that Weinstein had deliberately sabotaged Mira's reputation. Jackson said he had been told by Weinstein that working with her would be a nightmare, and that she should be avoided entirely. It was proof of just how much control Weinstein had over Hollywood. and how cruelly he used it to destroy careers. Ashley Judd. Like Mira Sorvino, Ashley Judd found herself quietly pushed out of opportunities after standing her ground against Harvey Weinstein's harassment. The full extent of what happened didn't come to light until December 2017, when director Peter Jackson, yes, the visionary behind The Lord of the Rings, revealed the truth. Back when Jackson was casting for his films, Weinstein had personally warned him to stay away from Ashley. He called her difficult to work with and insisted she should be avoided at any cost. Those words carried weight. Based on that smear alone, Jackson removed Ashley from consideration for a major role. Just like that, a massive opportunity vanished. Not because of talent, but because of a lie. But Ashley didn't let it end there. In May 2018, she decided to fight back. She filed a defamation lawsuit against Weinstein, arguing that his false and damaging remarks had cost her jobs and limited her ability to make a living in the industry she loved. Charlie Sheen. Charlie Sheen was once one of the biggest stars in Hollywood, dominating screens and headlines alike. But after 2014, things started to spiral. That was right around the time his sitcom Anger Management ended, and from that point on, his career hit a serious rough patch. Sheen himself has said that he's been blacklisted by Hollywood. The claim came to light when he went to court, asking a judge to lower the alimony payments he was making to his ex-wives, Denise Richards and Brooke Muller. In those court filings, he explained that he just couldn't secure steady work anymore, saying he'd been shut out of much of the entertainment industry. He never spelled out exactly who was behind it or why, but most people connect the dots back to his unpredictable behavior and that explosive fallout from 2.5 Men in 2011, an episode that marked the beginning of a long public decline. Mel Gibson. Mel Gibson's story in Hollywood is one of the most dramatic image shifts the industry has ever seen. For years, he was untouchable, a bona fide superstar who dominated the box office through the 1980s and 1990s. From his breakout roles in the high-octane Mad Max series to his charm and grit in Lethal Weapon, Gibson wasn't just acting. He was defining what a movie star looked like in that era. Then, he took things to another level behind the camera, winning big with Braveheart in 1995, and later pushing boundaries with the polarizing yet wildly successful The Passion of the Christ in 2004. He had power, prestige, and respect across Hollywood. But that golden image started to crumble in the late 2000s. The fall wasn't slow, it was explosive. In 2006, Gibson was arrested for driving under the influence, and what might have been just another celebrity mugshot turned into a career-ending storm when reports surfaced about his anti-Semitic outburst during the arrest. Overnight, his name became toxic. Studios distanced themselves, and casting calls stopped coming in. Between 2006 and 2010, his film appearances dropped to almost nothing. Just one notable comeback attempt with Edge of Darkness. Then, things went from bad to worse. In 2010, a public scandal involving his ex-partner, Oksana Grigorieva, surfaced, with disturbing recordings that painted him in an even darker light. Hollywood had seen enough. His agency, William Morris Endeavor, dropped him, and with that, Gibson's access to the industry he once ruled seemed completely gone. The situation was compounded by other reports of racist and homophobic remarks over the years, further damaging his reputation. For a long time, it felt like that was the end of the road. But then, slowly, Gibson began to claw his way back. His 2016 film Hacksaw Ridge marked a major turning point. Critics praised it, audiences loved it, and the Academy took notice. 6 Oscar nominations, including one for Best Director. It was more than just a comeback. It was a statement that despite everything, Mel Gibson still had the talent and vision that once made him one of Hollywood's biggest forces. Rose McGowan. Rose McGowan, best known to many as Paige from the hit WB series Charmed, became one of the most outspoken voices against Harvey Weinstein, claiming he had blacklisted her in Hollywood. Her story traces back to the late 1990s when she alleged that Weinstein assaulted her. Instead of pursuing legal action, she accepted a $100,000 settlement, a decision she later said came with devastating consequences for her career. In the years that followed, filmmaker Robert Rodriguez tried to help her make a comeback, offering her a prominent role in his film Grindhouse. The twist, though, was that the movie was produced under the Weinstein Company's banner. Despite earning strong reviews from critics, Grindhouse failed to make a mark at the box office. McGowan has long believed that wasn't an accident. She's claimed that Weinstein deliberately buried the film, sabotaging its success to make sure her career never regained its footing. It was, in her eyes, one final act of punishment from a man who already held far too much power in Hollywood. Katherine Heigl. If there's one thing that might have worked both for and against Katherine Heigl, it's her honesty. In the 2000s, she was everywhere, one of Hollywood's brightest stars. Between blockbuster romantic comedies like Knocked Up and 27 Dresses and her Emmy-winning run on Grey's Anatomy, it seemed like she could do no wrong. But then, her willingness to speak her mind started to cause waves. Heigl began using her rising platform to call out what she saw as problems within the industry, especially the way women were portrayed on screen. During a now-famous interview with Vanity Fair, she said that Knocked Up made women seem uptight and humorless, while painting men as carefree and lovable. She clarified that making the film had been a mostly great experience, but still admitted it was hard for her to love the final product. That one comment changed everything. What started as honest criticism quickly snowballed into full-blown controversy. Then came the Emmy situation in 2008, when she publicly withdrew her name from consideration, explaining that she hadn't been given material worthy of a nomination that year on Grey's Anatomy. It was a move that didn't sit well with producers or writers, sparking rumors that she just wanted out of her contract. Heigl eventually returned for another season, but by 2010, after failing to show up on set, her departure from the show was official. By that point, the industry had already branded her as difficult and ungrateful. Behind the scenes, reports from film sets like Life as We Know It didn't help her case either. Crew members described her as demanding, someone with big movie star expectations who was tough to please. As time went on, that reputation stuck. Word around Hollywood was that she had become more trouble than she was worth, and for a while, it looked like her career might not recover. Many believed her biggest misstep was publicly criticizing Knocked Up, the very film that made her a household name. Calling it sexist didn't just rub her co-stars the wrong way, it sent a message to the industry that she was willing to bite the hand that fed her. For years, Heigl seemed stuck in career limbo, but she's been slowly reclaiming her place on screen. Her starring role in Netflix's 2021 hit Firefly Lane showed that she's far from finished. Shia LaBeouf had one of those careers that seemed full of promise. For years, he was the kind of actor who kept people guessing, constantly reinventing himself, diving into new creative lanes, and surprising audiences in unexpected ways. But around 2014, those surprises started taking a darker turn. And not the kind that made headlines for the right reasons. A lot of people first got a glimpse into the personal struggles behind the fame through his 2019 film Honey Boy. The story drew heavily from his childhood years as a Disney Channel star on Even Stevens. What made it even more powerful was that Shia wrote the entire script himself while he was in rehab, battling drug addiction and PTSD. He even took on the role of his own father in the film. The performance was raw, emotional, and widely praised for its honesty. But then, in 2022, Shia revealed something that left fans stunned. He admitted that much of the story had been exaggerated, even fabricated, and that revelation was just one chapter in what became a chaotic few years for him. By the early 2020s, Shia's name was making headlines again, but this time for all the wrong reasons. He'd already had a history of public arrests and bizarre performance art stunts, but things escalated dramatically in 2020 when musician FKA Twigs filed a lawsuit against him. Her claims were disturbing, alleging physical and emotional abuse, and even accusing Shia of killing stray dogs to prepare for a movie role in The Tax Collector. The details were shocking and painted a deeply troubling picture. Around that same time, more controversy followed. Shia was reportedly fired from Olivia Wilde's film Don't Worry Darling, with Wilde suggesting that his behavior made co-star Florence Pugh uncomfortable. But Shia didn't stay silent. He denied the claims outright and even shared an email he'd written to Wilde with Variety, insisting that he wasn't fired, but had instead quit. He wrote that he knew the story of his firing made attractive clickbait, admitting he was still seen as persona non grata in Hollywood, an unwelcome figure. Ironically, that very label seemed to spark a new twist in his career. Despite everything, legendary director Francis Ford Coppola cast him in Megalopolis, one of the most talked about and controversial films in recent years. For Shia LaBeouf, the chaos never really stopped. It just kept evolving, right alongside his reputation. Jim Caviezel. At one point, Jim Caviezel was seen as one of Hollywood's brightest rising stars. He had the looks, the charm, and the talent to back it all up. Every sign pointed toward a long and successful career. But everything took a dramatic turn after one film, The Passion of the Christ. That movie completely changed the course of his life. Caviezel has often said that after taking on the role of Jesus, Hollywood basically turned its back on him. Before The Passion, he was everywhere. After it, he found himself on the outside looking in. Even Mel Gibson, who directed the film, warned him this would happen. Gibson told him straight up that stepping into that role could mean the end of his career. But Caviezel didn't back down. He told Gibson that everyone has their own cross to carry, and that this was his. He was willing to take that risk, fully aware of what it might cost him. And sure enough, Gibson's warning turned out to be true. The film sparked intense controversy, with critics calling it anti-Semitic, and Caviezel's once promising Hollywood path quickly dried up. Big studio roles became few and far between. Still, he's never expressed any regret about the decision. In his mind, the message of the film and his faith were worth whatever career fallout came with it. To him, Jesus has always been controversial, and that, he believes, hasn't changed in 2,000 years. Megan Fox. Despite being one of the ultimate icons of the 2000s, it's wild to think how quickly Hollywood turned its back on Megan Fox. At the height of her fame, just as she was becoming a global sensation, things took a sharp turn. Fox began calling out the film industry for how it treated women, and honestly, she was speaking truths that would only become mainstream years later. But that same honesty ended up costing her. She directed some of her criticism toward her Transformers director, Michael Bay, describing him as a nightmare to work for. Her comments were more layered than headlines made them seem. She admitted that away from the set, Bay could be awkward, vulnerable, and even endearing. But on set, she said, it was a whole different story. He became a tyrant. Those remarks didn't go over well. According to Bay, producer Steven Spielberg personally advised him to fire her before the third Transformers movie even began shooting. That decision crushed her momentum, leaving her career in limbo for years. The twist? She eventually reconnected with Bay, this time working under his production umbrella for the live-action Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles films. It was a surprising full-circle moment for someone once branded as difficult. In recent years, Fox has found herself back in the spotlight, not just for her relationship with Machine Gun Kelly, but also for a string of performances that remind audiences of her talent. Her turn in the 2021 thriller Till Death proved she still has that spark, and maybe, just maybe, her long-overdue Hollywood comeback is finally within reach. Harvey Weinstein. In 2017, the storm that had been brewing for years finally broke. For many within Hollywood, it wasn't exactly a shock. It was more of an "it was only a matter of time" moment. Harvey Weinstein woke up to a world collapsing around him. The first reports hit like an earthquake, detailed, disturbing, and filled with accusations of abuse and harassment from dozens of women. Those revelations didn't just expose one man, they set off a global reckoning. More and more women came forward, and within weeks, the number of allegations had soared to over 80. This went beyond a scandal. It became a movement. The Chic Me Too wave swept through industries worldwide, toppling powerful figures once considered untouchable. including actors like Kevin Spacey. The fallout for Weinstein was immediate. He was fired from his own company, cut off by the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, and dropped by nearly every organization that once celebrated him. Then, in 2020, as his legal battles continued, he lost his honorary CBE, one of Britain's highest distinctions. Today, Weinstein sits behind bars, serving a 23-year sentence, with more potential charges still looming on the horizon. Bill Cosby. Few stories in Hollywood history compare to the sheer shock of Bill Cosby's downfall. For decades, he was America's dad, a beloved figure whose image seemed untouchable. But everything changed in 2014 when comedian Hannibal Buress used his stand-up routine to call out the long-standing allegations that had followed Cosby for years. That one moment cracked open a door that would never close again. In the months that followed, wave after wave of women came forward, each sharing disturbing stories of being drugged or sexually assaulted by Cosby, allegations stretching back decades. The most unsettling part was realizing that even at the height of The Cosby Show, a groundbreaking hit that united audiences across race and class, the man at the center of it was allegedly living a double life. By 2018, Cosby was behind bars in Pennsylvania, marking a staggering fall for one of television's most iconic figures. And, while he was released just a few years later, after the state's Supreme Court overturned his conviction on a legal technicality, his freedom didn't come with redemption. His career is over, his reputation destroyed, and that once spotless legacy gone forever. Isaiah Washington. Isaiah Washington's story is one of those Hollywood tales that took a sharp turn almost overnight. At one point, he was seen as one of the brightest stars on television, a standout talent on the hit show Grey's Anatomy. But by the late 2000s, his career had taken a nosedive, largely because of one moment that put him on Hollywood's unofficial blacklist. It all started back in 2007, during the Golden Globe Awards, when Washington made a homophobic comment that instantly set off a firestorm. The thing is, this wasn't an isolated slip-up. Just a year before, he had already landed in hot water for using a homophobic slur against his co-star T.R. Knight. So when that second incident happened, it was pretty much the breaking point. Even though ABC tried to handle the situation quietly by sending him to executive counseling, it didn't save his job. The network decided not to renew his contract, and that was the end of his run on Grey's Anatomy. The aftermath hit him hard. Washington later described how his career completely unraveled after that moment. No agent, no publicist, no real support system. Everything he had built came crashing down. In the years that followed, he managed to stay active, appearing in smaller independent projects, but the big Hollywood spotlight never really came back. Looking back, Washington once said that his acting career had been effectively killed the day he was fired in 2007. And in many ways, that day marked the point where one of television's most promising stars became one of its most infamous cautionary tales. Thora Birch. Not too long ago, Thora Birch was seen as one of the most promising young talents in the industry. After earning critical acclaim for her breakout role in American Beauty and landing a Golden Globe nomination for Ghost World, it seemed like the sky was the limit for her career. But somewhere along the way, that bright rise dimmed. These days, she's no longer the household name she once was, and many fans have found themselves asking, what exactly happened? According to Thora, her downfall had a lot to do with reputation. She's been open about believing she was quietly pushed out of Hollywood because of what people labeled as difficult behavior. In her own words, she admitted to upsetting a lot of people over time, saying the industry seemed to distance itself from her, hoping she'd change. And while that tension was brewing, another major factor was at play. Her father, who also served as her manager. His overbearing presence reportedly caused more harm than good. At one point, he was accused of threatening one of her co-stars during an off-Broadway production of Dracula, a move that got Thora fired from the show entirely. It wasn't the first time his actions cost her a job either. After multiple professional setbacks tied to his involvement, Hollywood eventually turned its back on her, leaving Thora frustrated and ready to step away from acting altogether. It was a harsh fall for someone who once seemed destined for lasting stardom, Randy Quaid. Let's be honest, most people probably couldn't list every movie Randy Quaid has ever done, but his standout roles? Those are unforgettable. The eccentric cousin Eddie from the National Lampoon's Vacation films and the fearless pilot Russell Cass from Independence Day cemented his place in pop culture history. But lately, he's been noticeably absent from the big screen, and there's a pretty wild reason why. Starting around 2009, Quaid and his wife, Evie Motolanez, became entangled in a string of strange and often headline-grabbing legal troubles. The list includes everything from accusations of defrauding a Santa Barbara inn out of more than $10,000 to being charged with burglary for staying in a home that wasn't even theirs. With a track record like that, it's no surprise Hollywood has kept its distance for years. Lena Horne. In the 1940s, Lena Horne rose to fame like few others before her, one of the first black women to truly break through in both Hollywood and on the stage. With that velvet-smooth voice, magnetic presence, and striking beauty, she seemed destined for stardom. But behind the glamour, Horne was constantly fighting against the deep-rooted racism of the industry she was trying to conquer. Instead of staying silent, she chose to speak up. She joined several activist groups pushing for racial equality and civil rights, a bold move at a time when such associations came with heavy risks. And that's when things took a dark turn. Many of the organizations she supported had members linked to the Communist Party. Even though Horne herself had no connection to the party, her name was included in the notorious Red Channels pamphlet in 1950, a blacklist accusing entertainers of communist ties. Just like that, her Hollywood career came to a screeching halt. Cut off from film and television work, Horne refused to fade away. Instead, she reinvented herself as a powerhouse performer on the nightclub and cabaret circuit, captivating audiences across the country with her voice and poise. Still, the shadow of suspicion lingered, and she knew she had to take steps to rebuild her image. Determined to clear her name, she denounced communism publicly and launched a campaign of letters to prominent journalists and entertainment figures, pleading her case. Little by little, it worked. By the late 1950s, her reputation began to heal. She returned to television, released hit albums, and reclaimed her place in the spotlight. Through it all, Lena Horne never stopped fighting. Even after being branded a national security risk, she remained steadfast, using her voice not just to sing, but to demand justice. By the 1960s, she was deeply involved in the civil rights movement, proving that her strength off stage was every bit as powerful as her talent on it. Michael Richards. Michael Richards' fall from grace was one of the most shocking Hollywood had ever seen. After becoming a household name for his role as Kramer on Seinfeld, no one could have predicted how fast his career would collapse. It all unraveled during that infamous night at the Laugh Factory in 2006. In the middle of a stand-up set, Richards launched into an ugly, racially charged tirade directed at audience members. The entire outburst was caught on video, and within hours, it spread everywhere. He apologized soon after, but the damage was already irreversible. Hollywood quickly distanced itself, and his once thriving career never recovered. Years later, he appeared on Jerry Seinfeld's Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee, where he admitted he still struggles with the weight of that night. And truthfully, so does the industry. James Woods. James Woods was once regarded as one of Hollywood's most respected actors, a sharp, intense performer with an Oscar nomination and decades of strong work behind him. But things took a sharp turn for him around 2017. That's when he seemed to fall completely out of favor with the Hollywood establishment. The reason? His outspoken political views. Woods began posting a series of harsh anti-Obama comments on Twitter, making it very clear where he stood politically. A vocal supporter of Donald Trump, he never held back when it came to sharing his opinions, no matter how controversial they might have been. And what really stood out was how unapologetic he was about it all. He openly acknowledged that his views had cost him work, even admitting that he had accepted being blacklisted. Now, Hollywood has always leaned heavily Democratic, so Wood's very public conservative stance didn't exactly win him any favors. Before long, the roles stopped coming. Whether he cared about that or not remains unclear. But one thing's for sure, his once steady stream of work had completely dried up. Elizabeth Berkley. Elizabeth Berkley's rise in the late 80s and early 90s was fast and promising. As Jessie Spano on Saved by the Bell, she seemed destined for a long, successful career in Hollywood. But as the decade came to an end, the acting offers started to slow down, and she gradually faded from the spotlight. What made her story different from so many others is that her downfall wasn't caused by controversy or off-screen drama. Instead, it all came down to one major decision: taking the lead role in the 1995 film Showgirls. The movie was so widely panned that it became a punchline in Hollywood circles. And unfortunately for Berkley, the backlash was brutal. Her performance, and even her association with the film, made casting directors wary. That one role effectively derailed what had looked like a star on the rise. Brendan Fraser. In the late 90s and early 2000s, Brendan Fraser was everywhere. One of Hollywood's most bankable stars, with hits like Bedazzled and the Mummy franchise. But as the years rolled into the mid-2000s, something changed. His big roles started disappearing, and his once booming career seemed to slow to a crawl. Fraser has often pointed to one deeply personal and painful experience as a turning point. In 2003, he alleged that Philip Burke, then president of the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, the same group behind the Golden Globes, sexually assaulted him during an event at the Beverly Hills Hotel. According to Fraser, when he resisted and later spoke about what happened, he was quietly shut out by the industry. The HFPA, he claims, rarely invited him back after that. Burke denied the accusation, insisting in his memoir that it was just a joke, a simple pinch on the backside. But for Fraser, the consequences felt far from a joke. While he acknowledges that other factors may have contributed to his career slowdown, he's always believed that the incident with Burke played a major role. In his words, when the calls stopped coming and the offers dried up, he couldn't help but wonder if that moment was the real reason why.